Picture this. You're standing in a North Carolina barn in 1966, watching a mechanic slide under a stock car with a blowtorch. He's not fixing anything. He's creating an illegal fuel tank so perfectly hidden that Nascar officials will tear the car apart for 6 hours and never find it. That mechanic would become the most legendary leader in racing history, outsmarting every rule NASCAR could write, and doing it all with a criminal record for running moonshine that would have landed anyone else in federal prison. Junior Johnson didn't just bend the rules. He twisted them into pretzels, lit them on fire, and served them to NASCAR officials with a smile. Between 1955 and 1966, this former bootlegger won 50 races and pioneered cheating techniques so brilliant that NASCAR had to rewrite their entire rulebook multiple times. But here's the kicker. NASCAR knew he was cheating. The other teams knew he was cheating. Hell, Junior himself would tell you he was cheating. The problem? Nobody could prove it. And when they finally did catch him, he'd already moved on to 3 new tricks he hadn't even thought to make illegal yet. This is the story of Robert Glenn Johnson, Jr., better known as Junior Johnson, the moonshine runner who became NASCAR's most ingenious rule bender, the man who literally invented drafting, and the only person in racing history to make cheating look like an art form. To understand how a backwoods bootlegger became NASCAR's master manipulator, we need to travel back to 1940s North Carolina. The brushy mountains region where Junior grew up wasn't just rural, it was moonshine country. His father, Robert Johnson Sr., ran one of the largest illegal whiskey operations in the South, producing 2,500 gallons of White Lightning every week. That's roughly 12,500 bottles of untaxed liquor flowing through Wilkes County. By age 14, Junior was running midnight deliveries in a souped-up 1940 Ford, not because he wanted to, because the family business demanded it. Federal revenue agents were everywhere, and getting caught meant serious prison time. So the Johnson family did what any self-respecting moonshiners would do. They made their cars faster than anything the government could buy. We're talking about a 1940 Ford with a Cadillac engine swap, producing around 150 horsepower when stock Fords made 85. The suspension was reinforced with heavy-duty springs to handle 120 gallons of moonshine, about 800 pounds of liquid cargo. The exhaust was modified with cutouts that could be opened for more power during chases. This wasn't hot rodding for fun. This was engineering for survival. Junior could make that overloaded Ford dance through mountain roads at 95 miles per hour in complete darkness, headlights off, to avoid detection. Federal agents of stock vehicles didn't stand a chance. Between 1945 and 1955, Junior made hundreds of moonshine runs. He was caught exactly once. That arrest in 1956 should have ended his racing career before it started. 11 months in federal prison for manufacturing illegal whiskey. But when Junior got out, something incredible happened. NASCAR, founded by Big Bill France in 1948, was desperate for drivers who actually knew how to make cars go fast. And nobody made cars go faster than moonshiners. Think about it. NASCAR needed drivers with 3 things: mechanical knowledge, fearlessness, and the ability to push a car beyond its limits. Moonshiners had been training for this their entire lives. They just didn't know it yet. Junior's first NASCAR race was at Hickory Motor Speedway in 1953. He finished 38th, dead last. His car broke down after 11 laps, but Junior noticed something the other drivers missed. NASCAR's rulebook, all 16 pages of it, was full of holes. It said what you couldn't do, but it left massive gaps about what you could do, and Junior Johnson lived in those gaps. The 1955 season was when Junior's creative interpretation of rules began. NASCAR mandated stock body dimensions, so Junior kept the outside stock. But inside, that was different. He acid-dipped body panels to remove weight, taking 12 pounds off a hood, 8 pounds off a roof. Doesn't sound like much until you realize he did this to every single panel. The car looked stock but weighed 180 pounds less than factory. NASCAR's rules said engines had to be stock displacement. They never said anything about balancing and blueprinting. Junior would tear down 5 engines, measure every component, and build one perfect motor using the best tolerance parts from all 5. Technically, stock parts. Technically, the right displacement. But producing 35 more horsepower than any factory engine could dream of. The rulebook specified stock fuel tanks must be used. It didn't specify you couldn't have 2 of them. Junior welded a second tank inside the frame rails, invisible unless you cut the car apart. 5 extra gallons of fuel meant 1 less pit stop in a 500-mile race. That's 30 seconds saved, enough to win. But the real genius wasn't any single trick. It was the system. Junior would introduce 3 or 4 illegal modifications at once. NASCAR would find 1, maybe 2, and think they'd caught him. Meanwhile, the other tricks stayed hidden. He was playing 3-dimensional chess, while officials were playing checkers. The 1959 Daytona 500 perfectly captured Junior's approach. NASCAR had just opened Daytona International Speedway, a 2.5-mile track oval with 31-degree banking. Speeds would exceed 140 miles per hour, faster than any stock car had gone before. Everyone else focused on horsepower. Junior focused on physics. During practice, he discovered something that would revolutionize racing forever. By tucking his Chevrolet directly behind another car, he could gain 15 mph without touching the throttle. The lead car was punching a hole through the air, and Junior was riding in the vacuum. He'd discovered drafting, though nobody called it that yet. In the race, Junior's black and white number 11, Chevrolet was consistently 7 mph slower than the leaders in qualifying. Didn't matter. He drafted behind faster cars, using their speed to slingshot past them in the turns. With 20 laps to go, he was leading. But here's where it gets interesting. Junior's engine was completely illegal. The 348 cubic inch W motor had been bored out to 362 cubes, way over the 358 limit. The camshaft was a full race grind, not even close to stock. The intake manifold had been port-matched and flowing 20% more air than legal, but Junior knew NASCAR wouldn't tear down a winning engine at their showcase event. Bad publicity. So what did he do? He intentionally blew the engine with 8 laps to go, dropped out, finished 38th, collected his appearance money, and nobody ever inspected the illegal motor. He lost the race, but kept his secrets. Classic Junior Johnson. The 1960 season brought Junior's most audacious cheating yet. NASCAR mandated specific tire sizes. Junior complied, sort of. He'd inflate his right side tires to 50 psi, stretching them larger, deflate them to legal pressure just before inspection. The stretched tires were an inch larger in circumference. Over 500 miles, that's 600 fewer rotations, less heat, less wear, and a speed advantage of about 2 miles. Then there was the infamous basketball in the fuel tank trick. NASCAR limited fuel capacity to 22 gallons. Junior would stuff an inflated basketball into the tank during inspection, pass with 22 gallons, then deflate and remove it, gaining 3 extra gallons. When officials started checking for basketballs, he switched to inflatable rubber bladders that dissolved in gasoline. By the time they checked after the race, the evidence had literally disappeared. But Junior's masterpiece came in 1966. Nascar had introduced templates to ensure body dimensions stayed stock. The templates checked specific points on the car. Junior realized the areas between checking points were fair game. He reshaped the entire car in those gaps, creating a vehicle that passed every template check but had 20% less aerodynamic drag than stock. The roof was lowered 7 or 8 of an inch in areas the template didn't touch. The windshield was laid back an extra 3 degrees. The rear deck was extended 2 inches. Individual changes were invisible to the naked eye. Combined, they created a car that looked stock but slipped through the air like it had been designed in a wind tunnel, which, secretly, it had been. Junior had snuck his car into a General Motors wind tunnel using connections from his engine supplier. The technical mastery required was staggering. This wasn't shade tree mechanics. This was aerospace-level engineering hidden beneath primer paint and dirt. Junior employed 2 full-time engineers just to find loopholes in NASCAR's rules. They'd read every word, analyze every measurement, and find the gray areas. Let's talk specifics about Junior's engines, because this is where his moonshine knowledge really paid off. Moonshiners had been modifying engines for decades to outrun the law. Junior brought those tricks to NASCAR with scientific precision. Cylinder heads were the key. Stock cast iron heads flowed about 180 cubic feet per minute of air at 28 inches of vacuum. Junior's heads, after extensive porting, polishing, and larger valve installation, flowed 235 CFM. That's a 30% increase in airflow, which translates directly to horsepower. But here's the clever part. The external casting looked completely stock. NASCAR would check external dimensions, never suspecting the internal modifications. The compression ratio tells another story. Stock engines ran about 10.5.1 compression. Junior's engines were closer to 13.1, achieved through milled heads, pop-up pistons, and zero-deck clearance. This required 103 octane fuel to prevent detonation. Where did he get racing fuel? When NASCAR mandated pump gas. He didn't. He chemically altered pump gas at the track, adding benzene and toluene to boost octane. The chemicals evaporated during the race, leaving no evidence. The camshaft profiles were engineering poetry. Stock cams had about .380 inches of valve lift with 260 degrees of duration. Junior's race cams pushed .540 inches of lift with 320 degrees of duration, keeping valves open longer, flowing more air, making more power. But the base circle of the cam was stock diameter, so a quick external check showed a stock camshaft. Connecting rods were another innovation. Stock rods were cast iron, heavy, and prone to failure over 6,000 RPM. Junior used forged steel rods from Carrillo, 40% stronger and 25% lighter. Less reciprocating weight meant the engine could rev higher, safer, producing power at 7,100 RPM when stock engines peaked at 5,500. The oiling system received similar attention. Stock pumps flowed 6 gallons per minute. Junior's modified pumps pushed 12 GPM, keeping bearings cool under extreme stress. He added oil coolers hidden inside fake brake cooling ducts, dropping oil temperature 40 degrees. Cooler oil meant consistent power over 500 miles. But wait, there's more. The exhaust system was a masterclass in deception. NASCAR checked pipe diameter and muffler type. They didn't check internal construction. Junior's mufflers looked stock outside, but had straight-through perforated tubes inside, reducing back pressure by 60%. The exhaust pipes had thermal coatings on the inside, keeping heat in the exhaust, increasing velocity, improving scavenging. Another 15 horsepower from exhaust modifications alone. All told, a stock 358 cubic inch engine that should produce 375 horsepower was making 480 feet in Junior's hands. That's a 29% increase through legal modifications that existed in the gaps of NASCAR's rules. The 1963 season showcased just how far ahead Junior's cheating technology had evolved. At Atlanta Motor Speedway, his Chevrolet was clocked at 169 km on the back straight. The fastest qualifying speed that weekend? 160 km. He was faster in the race than others. Were in qualifying with special setups. NASCAR officials spent 4 hours inspecting his car after he won. They found nothing illegal because by their rulebook, nothing was. The roll cage tubing was 0.065 wall thickness instead of 0.83, saving 45 pounds. Legal because NASCAR hadn't specified wall thickness yet. The floorboards were aluminum instead of steel, saving another 60 pounds. Legal because the rules said stock floorboards without specifying material. The windows tell another story of innovation. NASCAR mandated safety glass. Junior used aircraft spec laminated glass that was 40% thinner while exceeding strength requirements. Each window saved 3 pounds. Doesn't sound like much, but multiply that by 6 windows. Add up all the little weight savings, and you've got a car that's 200 pounds lighter while appearing completely stock. Here's where Junior's philosophy becomes clear. He wasn't just randomly cheating. He was systematically exploiting every single ambiguity in the rulebook. If NASCAR said the body must be steel, he'd use the thinnest possible steel that still qualified. If they said the engine must be 358 cubic inches, he'd make sure it was 358.9, right at the edge of measurement error. The 1965 season brought Junior's most famous confrontation with NASCAR. At Charlotte Motor Speedway, officials were certain he was cheating but couldn't find anything. They literally disassembled his entire car, every bolt, every panel, every component. 6 hours of searching. They found the engine was 0.8 cubic inches too large, within measurement tolerance. Technically legal, but Junior knew they'd keep looking, so he gave them something to find, a fuel additive that was borderline illegal. They fined him $250 and felt satisfied. Meanwhile, the real cheats, the aerodynamic modifications and suspension geometry changes, went unnoticed. He'd sacrificed a pawn to protect his queen. The psychological warfare was brilliant. Junior would deliberately leave obvious cheats for officials to find, making them feel successful while hiding the real innovations. He'd protest loudly when caught, arguing technicalities, making officials second-guess themselves. Sometimes he'd run completely legal just to mess with their heads, watching them tear apart a stock car, looking for tricks that weren't there. Other teams tried to copy Junior's methods, but missed the crucial element. This wasn't just about mechanical tricks. It was about understanding the entire system, the rules, the officials, the politics, the psychology. Junior played every angle simultaneously. By 1966, Junior had won 50 NASCAR races and was ready to retire from driving. But his impact was just beginning. As a car owner, he'd win 132 more races and 6 championships, using every trick he'd learned and inventing new ones. His drivers included Cale Yarborough, Darrell Waltrip, and Dale Earnhardt. Champions all, driving cars that bent every rule without quite breaking them. The drafting technique Junior discovered became fundamental to all motorsports. Formula One, IndyCar, even bicycle racing used the principles he stumbled upon while trying to keep up with faster cars. Today's NASCAR races at superspeedways are entirely based on drafting strategies, with trains of cars locked together at 200 stirrup. NASCAR's modern rulebook is 208 pages long. In 1955, it was 16 pages. Those extra 192 pages, most of them exist because of Junior Johnson. Every specific measurement, every detailed requirement, every clarification was written to close a loophole Junior had exploited. He literally shaped the sport by forcing it to define itself. The technical innovations went beyond racing. The acid dipping process Junior pioneered became standard in aerospace manufacturing. The balancing and blueprinting techniques are now used in every form of motorsport. The aerodynamic modifications he developed in barn workshops preceded computer modeling by decades, but reached similar conclusions. Modern Nascar uses laser inspection systems, checking body dimensions to thousandths of an inch. They have dynamometers at tracks, testing engines for illegal power. Fuel samples are sent to laboratories for chemical analysis, all because one moonshiner from North Carolina was too clever for his own good. But here's the thing about Junior Johnson. He never hid what he was doing. In interviews, he'd openly admit to cheating, saying, "If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying." He saw it as part of the game. NASCAR wrote rules. He found ways around them. They'd close loopholes. He'd find new ones. It was an arms race that made both sides better. The ethics are complicated. Was it cheating if the rules didn't explicitly forbid it? Was it wrong to use superior engineering in a sport supposedly about engineering? Junior would argue he was just better at reading the rulebook than everyone else, and technically he was right. NASCAR Hall of Fame inducted Junior in 2010, cheating history and all, because they recognized a truth about their sport. Junior Johnson didn't taint NASCAR. He defined it. Every innovation, every safety improvement, every technical advancement came from teams pushing boundaries. Junior just pushed harder than anyone else. President Ronald Reagan pardoned Junior's moonshine conviction in 1986, wiping his federal record clean. But Junior never apologized for the moonshine or the cheating. In his mind, both were about the same thing, using intelligence and engineering to beat a system designed to stop you. Today's NASCAR is a multi-billion-dollar sport with corporate sponsors and national television coverage. But its soul still carries the DNA of those moonshine runners, especially Junior Johnson. Every crew chief looking for advantages, every engineer interpreting rules creatively, they're all following a tradition Junior established. The difference is now they have to be a lot more subtle about it. The last time anyone saw Junior's personal notebook of cheating tricks, it was 2019, shortly before his death. He'd kept detailed records of every modification, every exploit, every trick he'd pulled over 40 years. Reporters asked if he'd ever publish it. Junior smiled and said some secrets should stay buried. That notebook has never been found. Think about what Junior Johnson accomplished. A sixth-grade education, learned everything from his bootlegging father and backwoods mechanics, competed against factory teams with unlimited budgets and college-educated engineers, beat them all through sheer cleverness and an inability to accept that rules applied to him. He proved that innovation doesn't always come from laboratories or universities. Sometimes it comes from a barn in North Carolina, where a moonshiner with a blowtorch and a bad attitude decides the rules are more like suggestions, where every limitation becomes a challenge, every restriction an opportunity. Modern motorsports, with all its technology and regulation, still can't quite close every loophole, because the spirit of Junior Johnson lives on. That fundamental racer's belief that if you're not pushing the boundaries, you're not really racing. That winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. And that sometimes the best way to honor the rules is to expose how badly they're written. Junior Johnson passed away in December 2019 At age 88, NASCAR lowered its flags to half-staff, honoring the man who'd spent his entire career making their lives miserable, because they understood what everyone in racing knew. The sport was better because Junior Johnson had forced it to be better. Every rule he bent made them write better rules. Every trick he pulled made them smarter. So the next time you watch a NASCAR race with its precise regulations and high-tech inspection procedures, remember, it all exists because one moonshiner from North Carolina was too smart for his own good. Because Junior Johnson didn't just cheat at racing, he revolutionized it, one illegal modification at a time. What's the most creative interpretation of rules you've ever seen in any sport? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts on whether Junior was a cheater or an innovator. If you enjoyed this deep dive into NASCAR's most notorious rule bender, hit that subscribe button for more stories of engineering rebels who changed history. Until next time, keep pushing those boundaries, just maybe not quite as hard as Junior did.